So yeah, so we're recording. Got it. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. We're obviously here to talk about prospecting. Three main topics. One is just activity in general. As Jason mentioned, if with prospecting, there's the science and the art of it. We are really going to focus a lot on science here. Art is the part about the skill, and when you're on the phone or drafting emails or text messages, when you're in front of clients or prospects, you know, that skill to be able to move someone in a process of identifying their goals and bringing them solutions and having them to take action ultimately. That is something that you need to get good at. Reach out to us, reach out to joint fieldwork partners that you know to get good at that. But today is a lot about the science, about setting yourself up for success by treating prospecting the right way and going about the right activities week in and week out. So we'll talk a little bit about the game of activity, some rules of engagement, and then wrap it up with putting your process in a system to maximize your success. So when we talk about activity as a game, there's a couple reasons for that. One is, you know, games are fun. And so whatever your game is, cards, as the picture on the screen shows, golf, whatever your entertainment is, you want to treat activity the same way. And one way to look at it is there are a lot of similarities between games that we play and prospecting. And so one thing about golf, and anyone who knows me, it's done any golfing with me, which is pretty rare because I don't do a lot of golfing. They know I'm a terrible golfer, probably have no business being out there. But that's not the point. The point is that understand that there are two games within the game of golf. And it's the same thing with prospecting. There's the short game and then there's the long game. And you have to be good at both to win in our business of prospecting. So the short game is more of that consistent weekend activity of getting in front of those people that are ready and willing to work with us right now. But the long game is having that systematic strategy to continually be in front of people that maybe weren't ready at the time that we first reached out to them. We're going to focus a lot of time on that. So a couple of things that I think are important to point out, and I can only speak for myself, but I know there's some similarities among many advisors, and that is that most of us focus on that obvious target. So again, who is ready and willing right now this year to sit in front of me and do business with me? But it's important to know that statistics show that up to 2/3 of your business, 66%, is lost without that long-term process, because most of your business, again, 2/3 is delayed from anywhere from 1 to 3 years. Now there's an old activity system called the one card system. It's still available, I think, through the American College. I think it used to be a card file, now it's an electronic system. But the general activity rule of thumb is if I need a client, for every one client, I should have 10 prospects. So I reach out to 10 people. 3 of the 10 actually will sit down with me in the current year, and 1 will become a client, right? That's what a lot of people are taught and brought up on. But you have to read the fine print even in the one card system, because it's actually, again, 1/3 of those will actually become a client in the current year. So if I need 1 client a week, I don't need 10 new prospects, I need 30 new prospects. So whatever your number is, you know, if you are, you know, taking 30 new prospects every week and reaching out to them without a system, they are going to fall through the cracks. You're going to miss people, even the ones that are ready now, you're going to not return that call. Most of us will give up after 2 or 3 calls or a couple, a few short weeks of attempting to reach out. And then, they go in the trash bin or just disappear from our radar. And so when you're building your activity, when you're putting your game together, the first thing is identify that activity level. So is it 30 new prospects a week that I need? Is it, 10 new prospects a week? Whatever your number is, you have to identify that level and then block out in your calendar the time you're going to execute on that. So when am I reaching out to these prospects? And treat it like an appointment. Now we'll talk a little bit about, frequency. I like to say, 3 days a week. So let's say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Every other day, 3 days a week, I'm reaching out. So, roughly for every, say 25 to 50 calls or reach outs, you should give yourself about 45 minutes of time. If you're getting a hold of people and you're talking, you're like, well, I can't call that many people in an hour because I'm on the phone, for 10 minutes a person. Well, that's good. If you're reaching people, that's good. But the reality is we're only banking on reaching 3 out of 10 in a given call session or a given, reach out. So block out those times, schedule those in your calendar, and then you implement that strategy, but adjust it weekly until it's perfected. And what I mean by that is I may want to make calls or reach out at 9 in the morning on Mondays. And that may be the worst time to reach people. Now, from my market, it might be a good time. I don't know. I would say in general, it's not a good time, but I don't know for sure until I start actually executing on that. And if I'm not reaching, or getting a response from 3 people on average for my 10 that I do, then I maybe need to adjust that call in time. I may need to give myself more time, or maybe I blocked out too much time and I'm getting through these touches faster, right? So adjust weekly until that's perfected for your system. So what are some rules of engagement? Well, I kind of touched on this a little bit. Number one is, every other business day for a minimum of 6 attempts. That's what I would call phase 1 of the process. And what is a touch, right? Used to be easy. It was a phone call, right? Well, now it's a phone call. It's an email. It's a text message. It's a traditional, send a card or a note in the mail. Those are all, what we would qualify as a touch these days. I don't know if Snapchat is still is yet a way of, I guess it is. I don't know. I don't know anything about Snapchat, but the point is there's multiple ways of reaching out, and a touch is just that. Think of it as like a marketing impression. So every time I reach out, every time someone sees my name with an invitation to meet, that is a touch. And so there's many ways of doing that, but it's important that every new prospect that comes into your system, you are sending out a touch every other business day for at least 2 weeks or 6 attempts. After that, you're going to do what's called a final attempt. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, if the final attempt doesn't work, so now we've attempted 7 times to get in front of a prospect. If the 7th doesn't work, well, now we're putting them into our system, our CRM, or some other type of database system, where we're dripping on them or reaching out, again, more touches every month for a minimum of 3 years. We want to capitalize on that 2/3 of business that we're normally missing out on. And so for 2 to 3 or 3 years or more, it's up to you, but at least 3 years, you're definitely reaching out. My largest client in my career came from, it was a prospect, it was a cold call, and it took exactly 3 years to the week to close that business. So, and I remember, the only reason I remember that is because I remember throwing the business card out that 3 years later on that week, because I had a system. And that is actually the week that I finally got a positive response to actually do business. Dustin, you have a question?
A question, sir. In your multiple attempts to contact, okay, what are the different types of things that you're either leaving with them, approaching them with? So say like you talk to someone, the timing's bad on the first call. How do you continually reach out to them without being overly pushy, or, you know, being persistent, pleasantly persistent without being pushy?
Very good question. So, so when I say a touch every other business day for 6 attempts, that is to get contact with them. When I make contact, there's a couple of different things that could be the outcome. The hopeful outcome, this is again, we're working on that art, working on that skill is really important. I want to get an appointment scheduled. That's obviously the most favorable response. The second response is, you know, not now, or you know, it's a bad time, you know, can we follow up? I'll say, okay, I just need, make sure I have the right email address. And if I can have your birthday as well. I don't need your birth year, just the day and month. I'm not trying to steal your identity. What I want to do is put you in my database and treat you like a preferred client, which means I'm just going to send you things periodically. If anything resonates with you, feel free to respond, and then we can set something up. So you're putting them in your system, you're putting them right to phase 3, that drip campaign. The third thing is, you know, don't ever call me again, you know, not interested. And I would then, again, say, I wouldn't ask for the birthday at that point, but I would certainly ask for an email and say, well, is it okay if I just throw it in my system and periodically send you an email? Most people would say, okay. If they do, again, put them into phase 3. If they don't, then delete them. It's not a good lead. But the attempts are trying to get contact. Once you make contact, then again, it's either we schedule something now, we put a pin in it for a potential future conversation, or I'm just keeping in touch, and hopefully one day, you know, you request my services.
Good answer. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
One quick thing to add to that, Brandon, that was awesome. So I would just say too, if we call and we make contact and they say maybe, or not this week, but soon, you know, and they haven't said not now, I think it's good to just continue to be persistent and to continue to check in, kind of like with the touches that Brandon is suggesting in phase 1, until they ultimately say either not now for sure or no, because some people, as we all know, string us along a bit. And they may not be stringing us along, but they're busy, they're not sure, they're kind of weighing how serious they want to be about this. And that's another little mini game within the game.
Yeah, and maybe another class. We probably wouldn't be able to touch too much on it now, but that is really the purpose of your CRM. So as Jason mentioned, if it's not a good time, you don't want to keep attempting to reach them because you've already made contact. But maybe in your CRM, now you take the massive amounts of prospects, you take that one that's now a qualified prospect, it's someone that you think you could do business with sometime soon. You put them in the CRM, and as Jason's mentioned, maybe you say, okay, you put a task in there to call them in a week or something like that. So very good. Yeah, this is more, and we're going to jump right into the strategy. I'm going to switch to Excel here and kind of show you how this plays out. Did the screen switch? Do you see an Excel spreadsheet now?
We sure do.
Okay, good. What I like to do is take prospects. Again, these are, again, to clarify, these are people I haven't made contact with. I'm attempting to contact. And I don't want to muddy up my CRM, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever we're using. I don't want to muddy that up with, you know, thousands of names of people that I may have never be able to contact. And so I use a simple Excel or some sort of a spreadsheet to manage those touches until I can get them out of my prospecting system and into my CRM. Whether, again, it's an appointment, it's a, as Jason's mentioned, it's a follow-up, in a week or so, or it's somebody that I'm now dripping on, long-term. So I essentially just, it's very simple, very basic information we're capturing here. Name, contact information. You want to get as much as you can. Sometimes you don't have it all. It's understandable, but cell phone is the best, whatever their primary mode of contact is. Email and address. I mentioned birthday. Sometimes you get that right away. Sometimes you don't. If you're doing some sort of an event to gather prospects and you're doing like an information card where they're filling out their information for like a raffle or a drawing or just to get more information, make sure all of these elements are on there are very important because it gives you different ways, again, of communicating with them. And the birthday is going to be important. You'll see it in a minute here. So what we're doing is at the bottom, I have a bunch of different tabs, and those are my touches. So there's 6 touches. And then there's that final request. And then the last tab, I'm just labeling it CRM, which means these are the people I'm going to put into my database. So all I'm doing is it's my scheduled time. Let's say it's Monday at 1 p.m. and I'm making some phone calls or touches, right? And I go through my list. I go to my touch 1 category, and I go through my new people that I've added to the system, my new prospects that I've added. And so I give, maybe I start with calling. I give Sam a call. And you know what? The number's not good. It's a bad phone number. So I get rid of it so I don't have a bad number. And I send them an email. So I'll put in the dates, whatever today is. Is today the 6th? I don't know. 6, right? Yeah, that's spelled right. Email. So I send email on 7/6, and I go to my next person and my next person, and I just make my first touches, right? If I get a hold of Sam and he says, okay, well, let's leave it at this. Send him an email. We'll get out of that next. So I get through all of my first touches. And then I'm going to take the ones that I've attempted, and I'm going to basically just cut them out of there and attach them to the second sheet. Then I'm going to go to my second sheet. Now, assuming I've been doing this for several days or several weeks, there's going to be people on that second sheet, right? And that's going to be my second attempt. And I'm constantly moving them down the line until I get them to the final sheet, which is CRM. So let's say I'm contacting Sam and I find out that his email is bad, his phone number is bad, everything's bad. So I can't do anything with it. So then what I'll do is I will take him and I'll put him into the request. And what that request sheet is these are people that I haven't been able to contact. So maybe I do have valid information, but they never respond to anything. I've left 6 messages now over the course of 2 weeks, where I've made some calls, I've sent some emails, and it's important to mix it up. That's why in the notes you put what the type, what the touch was, because maybe if I don't get a response 2 days later when I'm making my second attempt, I'm not going to use the same method if I didn't get a response, unless that's my only way of contacting them, right? If I don't have a phone number, like in the case here, then I have to use that. But after 6 attempts, I haven't gotten anywhere. I haven't gotten any response. Well, my request is going to be is a letter, an actual physical letter that I send in the mail that says, who's this guy, Sam? Hey, Sam, I've been trying to get a hold of you in regards to your investments or in regards to your insurance or whatever it is that you're trying to get a hold of them for. And what you want to do there is you want to be truthful, but you want to have the wording that makes them think that it might have something to do with their current policy that they own. So in other words, I wouldn't say, I've been trying to reach you to discuss your insurance needs. I would say something like, I've been trying to get a hold of you to discuss your insurance policy. And the reason for that is because they may say, oh, I have been getting messages from Jason, and I haven't responded, but it says about my insurance policy. And I have an insurance policy. So maybe he works with the company, right? Whatever the reason is, you're not being deceptive. You really want to talk to him about insurance, about his insurance policy. If he doesn't have an insurance policy, you're going to talk to him about an insurance policy, right? Identify the need and talk to him about, what policies are available. So you're not lying, not being deceptive. If you do know they have an insurance policy, if you got a lead about maybe term policies that were expiring, well, that's great, because I would put right in that letter, calling about your policy with One America. Please let me know the best number to reach you at during business hours. And roughly 50%, if we have the right address, 50% on average will respond to that letter if you are referencing a specific policy that they have. So now you can call them, and again, another time we could talk more about skill, but the whole point is, again, getting that contact people to schedule time to talk to them.
Hey, Brandon.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is that letter your phase 2 final attempt?
Yes, that would be the request. That's
Got
after
it.
6 attempts.
Got it. Yeah.
Now, I may go after one touch, I may send them right to the request because I don't have any valid way of contacting them. Maybe I only had a phone number and I found out the first attempt that my phone number was invalid. So if it's a wrong number and I have no other way of communicating them other than a letter, I'm going to go right to that request. I'm going to send that letter out. Dustin, I see your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Where do you find is your best, obviously you have multiple facets into your marketing strategy of where you're prospecting, but where do you prospect mostly or have the best results? Is it just you going into public? Do you purchase leads? Do you go to data sites? Do you do so on and so forth?
Yeah, that's a really good good question. There's a book, Nick Murray. It's not a cheap book. If you get the library, it's probably best. Game of Numbers. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a really expensive book. I don't know why it's so expensive, but it is. But basically, there are multiple ways to prospect, as you know, Dustin. And I would recommend that you pick at least 2 different ways of prospecting that you would do.
Okay.
I mean, there's some places, like I have friends at Edward Jones and they're like, we door knock. That's what we do. I would never do that. I just wouldn't do it. I don't like it, right? And if somebody said that's the only way you can prospect, I guess I'd have a decision to make, right? Either be in business or not. But there's multiple ways of prospecting. So find the ones that you'll actually do and do a couple of those and see what the results are. And if they're working, great. If they're not, drop it and do something else. But you should be doing at least 2 things. I've always found personally, the best way to prospect is to just get referrals from people you already know. And there's an art to that. Obviously, if your, referral script is, who do you know that I can sell insurance to? It's going to be a real rough ride, right? But, and we can talk offline, or maybe we'll have another session on how to get referrals. Because we are kind of, I know we're good on time, but we're kind of limited. Yeah, I mean, that's what I found. It's just the warmest. And I'll leave you this. You always want to have 2 reasons to meet with someone, always 2. The first is the business reason, and the second is a personal reason. And so if I'm, if my main thing is life insurance, then I'm going to call. I'd like to sit down with you and share what I do in regards to life insurance planning. But I'd also like to sit down with you. You better know me as a person, because that way, if you do ever need anything, at least you know me, we're not complete strangers, right? Most people can reject the first one. I have an insurance person, or I'm all set, or I'm busy, or whatever the case is. But very few people can reject you personally. Now, if you take rejection personally, that could be a problem. That could devastate your week, and you may not make another phone call, right? But if you cannot make it personal, but turn the conversation personal, you'll get a lot more appointments. Now, you may get appointments with people you don't want appointments with because they clearly don't want to do anything, or they can't do anything. But you'll still get them in your system, and they'll still know you for what you do. So if the opportunity comes up, then you're a resource for them. Because if they say, well, no, I'm all busy, I'll say, okay, well, I understand you're busy, but you know, everybody has lunch or coffee. Can you just grab a cup of coffee, you know, maybe Wednesday? Like I said, the second part is I just want you to know me personally. On that basis, could we just get a cup of coffee next Thursday or next Wednesday, whatever the case is? And you'll find very few people can have something to say in regards to that. Because they'd have to say, well, no, I don't want to know you better. And they're not going to say that. Some will, but those are good ones to take off your system. So great question. All right, so again, we're moving people down the line. So every week we're adding our new prospects to the touch one sheet or tab. After we make our calls, we're moving them on to the next tab. When they get to the request tab, whoever's there, we are sending them that final request letter. If it's worded well, you should get about a 50% response to that. It really happens. I mean, it's really magical. Not so much a few years ago, but nowadays everybody's getting text messages and emails, and to get something in the mail is pretty unique. It costs like 60 cents now or something crazy like that. And then the last then segment is CRM. This is that long-term drip. And so what I do is I use a system called e-relationship. And e-relationship, if you tell them you're with One America, I think you have to, I would definitely say you're with Wela Financial. But if they say, well, that doesn't ring a bell, go with One America. But I'm pretty sure I got the arrangement from Wela. Basically, they'll give you, there's no setup fee. It's $100 to set up the account. There's no setup fee if you go through Wela. And I think the first month is free, and that's like $59 a month or something like that. It's right around $60 a month. And what they do is they will do that drip campaign for you. And if you have the birthday, you don't need the year, but if you have the birthday, then they're going to send birthday cards. They'll also send what they call off holiday cards. So they will send a Christmas card and an Easter card if you want. Obviously, you have to know your audience, right? You don't want to send a Christmas card to someone who's doesn't believe in Christmas. Although I guess you can send them a Santa Claus card, right? But they'll send like Groundhog's Day cards and 4th of July. I sent Independence Day cards out. So these are, besides the checklists where you're asking for, hey, here's it's a life insurance awareness month. Here's a checklist. Do you have the right coverage in place? And click through if you want a meeting with me. Those are the types of things that they send out. But they also send out inspirational messages, and they send out these birthday and off holiday cards. And the reason that's important is because you're sending out those touches, roughly one per month, but they're not all just business, right? And so you don't have to use a system like e-relationship. You can have your own system. If you put them in your CRM, I like HubSpot. If you're using HubSpot, you put them in HubSpot. Just make sure you're setting up tasks so that, hey, I have to send them a message on this day, send them a market update or something on this day. You want to send out those touches on a consistent basis. So when they think of insurance or investments or whatever it is, it's your line of specialty, they think of you. It's like marketing impressions, right? Why do people spend so much on marketing, getting in front of people so often? I don't think it makes them buy it. I think it makes them more familiar with the brand, and they think of you when they think of that service, right? I'll leave you with one last little story, and then open up for more questions, of course. So when my older brother first got out of the Army, he was going to buy a car, and he wanted to buy a Corvette. He never bought a Corvette, by the way, way too expensive, but he wanted to buy a Corvette. So we went to this place. It was in Elmhurst, Illinois, very close to where I live. And there were these guys, Solozzi and Edelson, and I think they're still around somewhere. At least one of them is still around. And they had this commercial, always save more money, right? And that was their commercial. And I just say that because I see Dustin nodding his head. So maybe you've seen those commercials where you always save more money, right? And there is a cheesiest commercial. They played the commercials all the time. And we went to the dealership, Solozzi Edelson dealership, to see the Corvettes. And one of the guys, the heavier guy, I don't know if it was Solozzi or Edelson, but he was in his office. There's a glass wall, so you could see him, and he was talking to somebody. And it was like starstruck, right? I'm like, hey, that's the guy from the commercial, right? And I was a younger guy, but still, it's like, this guy could be the biggest crook on the planet. Now, full disclosure, I don't know him, so maybe he's a very great, honest person. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But he could have been the biggest, crookedest car salesman. But I still was excited at the chance to talk to him because I saw him so often. So it's the same concept with, that consistent long-term prospecting, right? They just think of you, and it's not negative. Worst case, it's uncertain, but they see you and they think of you when it comes to investing or insurance because they're getting dripped on, every month. So that is all I have.
That's awesome, Brandon. Yeah. What other questions are out there this morning?
Brandon, when I say 588, you say
2,300.
Empire. No.
That's right.
When you were saying that, I was thinking of that commercial in Cook Brothers.
Right.
1740 North. I was like, yeah, but once they get that in their head. Very good presentation.
And then later on, they added that 800 prefix, remember?
Mm-hmm, they sure did, yeah.
And they added to the jingle just a little bit.
And then they bought Luna.
That's right.
I guess one other quick question is, do you ever, because right now I got some good intel from Todd Clark, which he gave me. It was originally Reference USA, now it's called Data Axle, but it's a neat database that has lists of all these different businesses and such. So I'm going to start pursuing that. But do you ever purchase leads, or that was something way back in the beginning? Is that anything for life insurance I should even look into, the penny 50-cent leads or to balance? I'm just curious on where, because it's not that I'm failing, it's that I need to get going. And that's one of those where if I get going here and put in better practices and activities, I'm going to have way better results, obviously.
Yeah. So I have purchased leads for sure.
Okay.
Early on, I purchased a lot of what's called mortgage protection leads.
Okay.
But leads have gotten expensive, especially if you want exclusive leads. So what we found, if you remember in an earlier slide, most advisors give up only after 2 or 3 attempts.
Okay.
And it really takes that 6th or 7th attempt to get a hold of a lot of people. And so I like aged leads.
Okay.
The cheaper, the better, as long as if you can get those data elements, if you can get email, mailing address, and phone number. I love aged. We've had a lot of success with aged leads. My business partner did not have a strong natural market, never really got good at referrals.
That's me where I'm at. Yes, not a
He
strong.
would buy a ton. He would buy. So 2 things. So reach out to me offline. We could certainly talk about just the process of getting more referrals.
Okay.
Because I think there's a gold mine there. You don't need a lot of people. But secondly, with leads, he bought a ton of leads, and he liked the aged leads because they usually didn't satisfy what they were inquiring about. They got turned off in the process, or just, ignored the salesperson that called them and never really addressed their primary reason for why they reached out to whatever company to begin with.
I could see where that would be almost a sneak attack and you're tapping them on the shoulder. Hey, remember when you were interested in that? Did that ever get taken care of for you? Well, no. Okay. And now you open up a dialogue. Okay.
Yeah. And so if I have an aged lead, let's say it's an old like life insurance lead, I'll call and say, hey, I'm calling. Did you ever get that life insurance taken care of? Get a hold of them. And they'll either say, oh yeah, I'm all set, or no, or what. Well, that's great. The purpose of my call is I wanted you to get to know me a little bit personally, because if you ever need help in the future, we're not strangers. So could we, get together for coffee next? I love that. I love the get together for coffee, something real quick, short meeting, just to get to know me. Because then when I explain the process, the holistic way that we look at them, and we'll do a quick review of what they currently purchased, or if they, usually you'll find out they haven't done anything. Really great opportunities there.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the age stuff. Whatever you need to do, again, try a couple of different things. Getting that volume of people you're reaching out to every week is really important. And the best way is, in my opinion, is warm and free. And warm and free is referral. And so no matter how you initially got that contact, you start getting referrals from them. And you can really snowball that activity where you're not purchasing really anything or doing a whole lot of other marketing efforts.
And that can be like, you can take a conversion from a cold call and turn that into a warm lead. And then literally that cost you zero acquisition, correct? Because it's like you converted that cold lead into an interest, and then the interest to a prospect.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought this up, because one of my larger cases early in my career was a referral from a cold lead.
Okay.
So I had a lead, never did business with that lead, but got referred to a relative that did business instantly.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because when you are referred to somebody,
Friend of a friend, it's usually a 60 to 70% guaranteed close, as long as you don't slough it up somewhere.
and the reason, it's a psychology. So Jason and I have known each other for a while. Dustin, we have known each other as long as I've known Jason, right?
Mhm.
If Jason refers you to me, psychologically, what happens is the length of our relationship is the same as yours and Jason's. So if you've known Jason for 10 years and I know Jason for 6 hours, you're going to think I know, because I was referred, like I've known Jason for 10 years too, or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the psychology behind a referral. So I'm not really concerned about necessarily the lead or the prospect. I'm more interested in the referral that comes from there, because it's usually a much stronger connection, believe it or not.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And then I want to get with you later, because I like how you pivot, because maybe if they aren't a client for you, then I want to know how to be able to pivot, but to build that trust and rapport with them to where they will just openly give names to you and say, yes, go talk to Dustin when you have, if you need resources or solutions.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Brandon, I just want to affirm your focus on the science side of prospecting versus the art of prospecting. I think a lot of times we naturally go to the art of prospecting, and it really matters because that's language and approach and things like that. Those things definitely matter, but I love your focus today on the science and particularly having a system. There's a quote that I heard from a leader in the sales industry that says, systems remove discretion at the operating level. Systems remove discretion at the operating level. And discretion is the freedom for any one of us to decide what to do in any given situation. And so the reality is, as independent business owners, we have a lot of freedom. We have a lot of discretion each and every day. What are we going to do this day? What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do in this situation? It's an industry of freedom. But the problem with that is we don't always choose the right thing. Just because we have freedom doesn't mean we go in the direction that we should be going. And that's why managing ourselves is so critical. And what I love about your focus today, Brandon, is you've shown us a system that can remove some of the discretion, some of the drifting that each of us may do on a day-to-day basis away from prospecting, when really we should be prospecting. That should be the number one thing that we should be doing in our business practice. And so I just love how you've systematized this for us, and it takes some of the emotion out of the game. Playing games is very emotional. I love your game analogy at the beginning. Prospecting is definitely a game. The financial industry is a very emotional industry, and perhaps it's really emotional because of the prospecting, the ups and the downs and the twists and the turns and the rejections and the no's. And it's hard to have that desire to face that every day unless you have a system. And so thank you for opening up your business, opening up your story to show us these systematic things. And I just want to encourage all of us to, maybe no matter how long we've been in the business, go back to ground zero in the month of July, kind of mid-year, and sort of reaffirm your system, tweak it, or come up with one, because this makes it so much better. So thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Any other last words or questions before we cut out just a few minutes early? Dustin, you've spent all your money.
I know, sir. I'm right.
No, please go ahead.
Get my money is worth, sir. And one last question. First of all, applause to Brandon. Very, very good today, sir. But how many hours as a new agent should I dedicate as prospecting, as far as like in person, on the phone, or does it even matter? 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, 7 hours a day? How many is that? Should that be an every day a week thing, or should that be an every other day a week thing, or and then schedule for the following days? How do you?
Yeah, well, according to my system, it's every other day.
Okay.
And the volume is based on your income goal, right? So if I do, I could do some math, like average case size, average closing ratio. There's a lot of statistics out there. You really don't know your number until you're doing it for a while.
I don't even care. Yeah, I don't care about any of that. I just want clients. I got to get some clients in my pocket.
Yeah. So I would look at more of like, how many clients do you want a week? How many new clients do you want to make a week? And remember that only a third of them are going to happen in the current year.
Okay.
So for every one, you need 3.
Okay.
And roughly every 10 prospects should yield you 1 client within the next 3 years.
Okay.
So it's like a 30-to-1 ratio of prospects to clients. And that's a good general rule to use. And then you just manage how much time you need to allot based on the volume of prospects, because we all have different financial goals. And part of the game is, you have to be realistic with yourself. Some people want to win. They want to be number one, right? Some people like, no, I just want to make 40,000 a year and I'm good, right? So it's really, you really have to gauge your activity on what your income goal is, and that's what you have to be consistent with.
Okay.
Yeah, really good question, Dustin.
Good answer. Very good answer.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for being on today. Thank you again, Brandon. This was really, really well done. You alluded to a couple different times some possible second sessions. Maybe we should approach this topic or that topic. I mean, this session certainly opened up the prospecting arena and all of the different things that we can say about it and talk about. And so stay tuned. We'll definitely come back to some of these other parts of prospecting. Remember Colleen's announcements at the beginning? Colleen, drum roll. What are they again in rapid fire form?
Wow. Good thing I wrote them down.
Next week. A lot of them relate to next week. We've got compliance and we've got firm-wide gatherings, right?
July 14th in the Oak Brook area with Todd Clark. July 12th, securities registered people, Firm Element. And 3rd was set up Christina and Lizette as delegates on OneSource so they can continue helping with pending.
Excellent. All right. Well, have a good rest of the week of the new month of July. shout out again to Brandon. Thank you. And we'll see you all soon. Hopefully in person next week.
Awesome.